I have a lot in common. Maybe you're sick, real sick, with heart disease or cancer, as I was, or some other disease. Maybe you're close to death, or maybe you're just feeling lousy, tired, fatigued. You know something's wrong, but you don't know what it is. On the other hand, maybe you're just smart, smarter than I was for most of my life. You just want to learn how to keep from getting sick. Well, good for you. Whatever your interest, come on in and let's sit down and talk for a while, and I'll share with you how I got well from cancer, which had me at one time close to death. So come on in. I've got great news for you. Americans are some of the sickest people in the whole world, but it hasn't always been that way. Years ago, a survey was done of about 125 nations, and the United States came in about 18th in health. But more recently, in a survey of 79 countries, the United States came in 79th. Heart attack is the leading cause of death in the world now, but it wasn't even diagnosed in the year 1900. When someone would die and they would do an autopsy, they didn't find arteriosclerosis. It was not even found until about 1912. But by 1951, heart attack killed at least half of all the men in this country who died over the age of 40. An American dies of cardiovascular disease every 34 seconds. That means a heart attack, a stroke, something related to high blood pressure is cardiovascular disease. By the time you finish watching the 11 o'clock news tonight, 2,488 people in this country will have died from cardiovascular disease today. Cancer deaths are increasing. By the year 2000, it is estimated that 1 out of every 2 will die of cancer. And children are dying of leukemia. In fact, when children die from accidents, they have found arteriosclerosis, or cardiovascular disease, in children as young as 6 or 7. Chronic fatigue syndrome is increasing, arthritis, all sorts of diseases. Everybody's sick. And why is this? Well, we as a nation are becoming sedentary. We're becoming couch potatoes. We stay indoors all the time. We work indoors, we go to school indoors. Our windows don't even open in many of the buildings that we work in. And we stay out of the sun because doctors have told us the sun is not good for you, you'll get skin cancer. And of course, we eat junk food. More than half of all the food eaten by Americans in the United States today is junk food. It's high in sugar, fat, and salt, and it has almost no nutrition. We call that empty calories. Every man, woman, and child in America eats approximately 700 pounds of junk food each year. That doesn't even include alcohol, white flour products, jams, jellies, or meat. 80% of all food items that you find now in supermarkets were not even in existence 20 years ago. And in the last 10 years, they have added 9,700 new items to grocery store shelves. And most of those, of course, are processed foods. For each dollar you spend on a processed food, only 10 cents of that actually goes for the food itself. The rest goes for advertising and packaging and additives, chemicals that are added to the food, and of course, markup for profit. So if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, let's discuss it. I'll give you my credentials. I'm an MD. I obtained my medical degree from the University of California, San Francisco. I took my internship there, and I spent 4 years in residency as an orthopedic surgery resident. I continued on the faculty of the University of California, San Francisco as associate professor and vice chairman of the department. I was there for 15 years, teaching other doctors, training them each day on how to become a healer, I thought. I was also chief of orthopedic surgery at San Francisco General Hospital. San Francisco General Hospital is a trauma hospital. For 20 years there, I took care of everybody who'd been shot and stabbed and been run over by a car or jumped out of a window or was thrown out of a window. That's how I lived my life. It's interesting and exciting, of course. This is a great way to spend your life. However, I never learned anything about healing, true healing. Doctors learned very little about nutrition or true healing when they're in medical school. My real education began when I found out I had cancer. Now, the information I'm going to give you does not just apply to cancer. It applies to virtually every chronic disease. And when I say chronic disease, I'm talking about heart disease, I'm talking about autoimmune diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis. So this particular program, which is an all-inclusive program, applies to virtually all chronic diseases. A person cannot get sick unless their immune system is not functioning properly. If the immune system breaks down from stress of any kind, whether it's domestic stress, stress on the job, overwork, whatever is going on in your life that's causing stress, maybe improper diet, lack of exercise, then the immune system, which is there to keep you well, if it stops functioning, it can no longer keep you well. When you're not feeling well, you go to your physician. Your physician makes a diagnosis, and what does he or she do? Generally, they give you drugs. Drugs never cure chronic diseases. They only cover up the symptoms while the disease continues to get worse. The only way to get well is to rebuild your immune system so your immune system can then get you well and keep you well. In my previous video, Cancer Doesn't Scare Me Anymore, I discussed the politics and business of medicine and why doctors are never taught how to really get people well. Now I'll tell you exactly how I got well. I had breast cancer. I had invasive breast cancer. I had the lump removed, but the cancer had invaded my muscle of my chest wall and eventually went to the lymph nodes under my arm and above my clavicle. They couldn't get all the cancer when they took the lump out, but I told them I would not agree to a mastectomy. I would not agree to radiation or chemotherapy because these are destructive agents. They destroy what's left of your immune system. And you see, my immune system already wasn't working properly. That's why I got cancer. So I knew that there must be therapies that could get me well that wouldn't destroy my body. When the surgeon removed the lump, and he said, I can't get it all, I actually went again for another procedure where they tried to get it all, but they still could not get it all. So cancer was left in my body. But by that time, I knew that I could still get well. I became very, very sick for a time. In fact, there was one time that I didn't know, and neither did my husband know, whether I would make it through the night. In fact, for weeks, I could barely walk from the bed to the bathroom. So I was very sick. So don't lose heart if you're very sick too. But as I changed my lifestyle, I started getting my strength back. Meat eating has increased for the blood pressure medications, right?
I haven't been on any of it since that time.
Not only that, we were able to get her off of Zantac, which was for her hiatal hernia or mid-epigastric pain. Within 4 months of the time you went on the diet, something else happened. We got some blood tests, and what did we find?
Are you speaking of the triglycerides?
That's right.
And the cholesterol?
Right.
Oh, yes. My triglycerides were up as high as 570, and in a short time, they were down to 140.
Well, the triglycerides are a measure of the fat in the blood. They were up at 570, and they dropped to 140. Normal is 200 or below, and that was in 4 months. Within the same period of time, your cholesterol, normal again, is 200 or below. your cholesterol had been about what,
250.
250. And where did it drop to in 4 months?
120.
Isn't that something? Now, this is in an 85-year-old woman. She changed the way she lived. So if she can do it, you have no excuse. Now, let me ask you, I'm going to ask her one other question. You've seen me talking about this diet, and you know that I've had cancer. And my mother wouldn't lie. She gave birth to me. How old am I?
60 years old last February.
That's right, just turned 60. So you see, you can go through a lot of stress, a lot of life-threatening disease, and still be healthy. Thanks, Mom.
Okay, I'm glad to do it.
Now I'm going to show you about the juicing. Here is the Cadillac of juicers. This is a Norwalk juicer. I'll tell you at the end of the video how you can purchase one of these if you're interested. They are very expensive, but if you have a life-threatening disease and you do have the money, they're well worth it because you get more nutrition by juicing with a Norwalk juicer than any other juicer. I wash my carrots and then I package them in a plastic bag. To make 1 glass of carrot juice, it takes about 3 large carrots like this. I usually add in an apple. Now you can mix fruits and vegetables if they're in juice because then your body doesn't really have to digest them. They all go through at once. This makes the carrot juice much sweeter. You can also mix an apple into your green leafy vegetable juice. If you want to make more than 1 juice at a time, you can do so if you put them in these little canning jars like this and put them immediately in the refrigerator. Then you can keep the juice for maybe 2 or at the most 3 days. Of course, it's better if you drink it within 5 minutes of the time that you eat it because the time that you mix it, but you will lose some nutrition if you put it in the jars like this. But if you don't have the time to make each glass of juice by itself, then you can put them in these little canning jars, which you can get at your grocery store. This is an Omega juicer. This is much less expensive than a Norwalk, and in my opinion, it is the best one in a lower price range. This is significantly less than the Norwalk juicer, and if you do not have the funds to purchase a juicer like the Norwalk, then I would suggest the Omega. If you don't have the funds to purchase any juicer, you can buy freshly made juice at most of your health food stores, and I do know of people who've gotten well from very serious diseases such as pancreatic cancer by the use of even store-bought juice, but not in cans, nothing that's on a shelf, but something that is refrigerated and made fresh at your health food store. If you want a substitute for ice cream, I can tell you there is a wonderful way to do it. You can freeze bananas like this in a plastic bag, peel them and put them in the freezer and freeze them, then put them in your blender and mix them either with strawberries or with dates, and it makes a wonderful substitute for ice cream, and it's full of nutrition. You can have a complete meal of fruit. This is wonderful, and this is the way God made it for you. It comes in its own packages, all of its own peelings, and you can just peel it and eat it. God made it in exactly the proper ratios with all the vitamins and minerals to suit your body. Sprouting is very easy. Here are sprouts that I've just recently been growing. These are sunflower seed sprouts. You can get these little containers to grow them in, and we'll show you how to get those at the end of this video. Here are some lentils. These are just organic lentils that I bought in the health food store. I rinse them. You put them in water first, and then you let them soak overnight. You drain them, and you put them in this little container. You have to wet them down twice a day so they don't dry out. But they grow very, very nicely. You can do all of this gardening in your own kitchen. Here's the barley green that I take. This is called AIM barley green. You can get barley green at your health food store. This happens to be one that you have to get through the mail. You can order this over the phone, and the information we are giving to you on how to do that. This also contains kelp. What it is the dried powder of the young barley leaf. It looks like this. I just put it in my carrot juice, and it adds an enormous amount of nutrition in its most natural form, except unless you eat the barley grass itself directly. This is another product made by the same people that make barley green. This is herbal fiber blend. It's a blend of various herbs. If you take, say, a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon in your juice, it will help clean out your intestine. It will make you more regular. It will be a good detoxifying agent to help you eliminate your waste. It is excellent, but when you take this, you must be sure that you drink a great deal of water. You can dress up your meals by having something besides baked potatoes over and over again. You can make French fries in the oven. I just cut them up and I put them in the dish like this. You want to put a little olive oil on the bottom of the dish. You never use flaxseed oil to cook with. You only use olive oil. But you don't fry them, you bake them. You bake them for about 45 minutes or an hour, and then you can put a little bit of salt on them and eat them as though they're French fries. They have virtually no oil in them, and they are very, very nutritious. So there are many things you can do with a potato without exercise. Sunbathing can